So hi guys, and welcome back again to one of my videos about modeling. And the subject of today was a kind of long awaited item, on market, because I think that today I've made a big research before, so I'm not so sure that somebody did it before. So I say, okay, even if they did, I don't care so much. I want to do my own one. I have the possibilities, I have the skills, I think I can do it, so no big issue for me. And the subject of today would be a plane. You know that I love cars, planes, trucks, whatever, basically in steady scale. And it is a very important item for the Italian Air Force, because this has been one of the most important trainer for the Italian Air Force, as well as in Germany and as well as in Portugal. And I am referred to the Dornier or Fiat, more Fiat than Dornier, honestly. That was the G91T, T like a trainer, the trainer version of the Gina, famous plane of the 60s, where mostly all the Italian pilots started with this plane, and there is so much love about this machine because it was truly Italian. It was still one of the machines coming from the 60s. You know all the background. I don't want to talk about that because you know much better than me. So I want to be focused on the model that I prepared now. This is in 1/48 scale. It's resin casted conversion for the only mold there is around about the G91. That is the esci kit. Very similar. Indeed, many say it's the same mold. I don't think it's the same mold. It's a similar mold, or taken mold from that, from Occidental, and the other one was Heller. I think they made it, back in time. Basically, it's the same kind of kit, so not so nicely done like the production of today. If we look at Tamiya, if you look at the last Hasegawa kits, if we look at whatever, mostly the biggest brand, the biggest company make incredibly nice planes, But these kind of subjects, until today, they are not been so considered by them. There have been rumors that maybe this, I hear since, guess what, 20 years, I guess, that some major company will make it and make it up in plastic and so on. And now I see that the last trend for these companies, it is mostly to make announcement about what they are going to do, and then in reality you have to wait for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I see the same with the Platz Nunu. I love to build up Porsches, and they just announced they announced 2 years ago that the 991 GT3R. So I stopped my master that was already in a 5 forward step, and we will see about that now. And they didn't do anything at today, so they are very slower production time. So about this G91, I am in the same condition. So some guys told me, beware, because that can be something made in plastic. Okay, I don't care. My production are very limited stuff. Unfortunately for the production process that I have to do, they all became quite expensive, but I basically don't care so much about the final price, because looking at myself, if I have an item that I'm interested in, I'd rather prefer to pay a little more than wait years and years and years and see my collection without the piece that I want to have. So this is the plane. This is finally the casted resin, of the G91. And my decision was to divide the master. The master, usually in this process, the saddest part is that usually your master, whatever you love them or not, they usually have been totally destroyed, and they exit like after a car crash, so don't be sensitive about your stuff, because if you want to produce stuff in resin, the master usually is pressed in a machine. So the modification that I did for the fuselage of the plane, this part, I respect the drawings coming from the Richard Caruana book. Richard Caruana was for me one of the most important historical, making books about warplanes and so on. He made a very nice series that I used to sell in my shop in Al Soldatino in the 90s, in the early 2000s, that was the war paint books. War paint books is a chain of books, not honestly real books, they are little manuals, but very technical, very nicely well done in the real British way, so they give you the most important information. It is basically what you get from the Squadron Signal in action book series that I grew up with. My English was coming from there, not from the store, from the Squadron Signal. So I have to say thank you for the Squadron for everything, And they give you a lot of interesting informations about this stuff. and I took his profiles to take the shape, because I think maybe there can be some misunderstanding or whatever in the translations and so on, but the measures is the correct one. So I trust completely what Rich say in his book. So I used the measure that he made. I made a bigger drawings to reach the proper scale in 148, and I start to study with some incredibly skilled modeler that I knew, you know, that already made this conversion in the past when I was a kid. And I remember that I seen this plane for real, both in 72 scale, both in 48 scale, and they were simply amazing. You know, in my shop in Milan, in the old Soldatino in Viale Umbria, we used to have a showcase that I still save one in my house now, where we have the most important and the most nicest work made by the local modelers, you know, that were absolutely stunning. So you enter in this shop, and as well as a lot of stock and stuff to buy, you can see really amazing stuff that you say, this is like a contest. So it was absolutely super. And I remember that more than one time I see these models of the G91 made by this model, and sooner I get in touch with the modeler, and today is a very good friend of mine, you know, is Claudio. I salute you. Hi, Claudio. And he made the conversion, and he studied quite well the proportion of the plane. So it was him telling me, Paolo, remember, if you want to go for that conversion, it seems easy because it seems just a double seat, it's done, little longer, but you have to consider very carefully the proportion, you know. And so we discover, he gave me the tip to make the modification of the main fuselage, cutting in two pieces and enlarging the structure of the fuselage. The G91T had a wide, bigger, higher intake in the front that have been enlarged for the original mold, and the original mold should be here. I tried to save him, but you still can see some of the part that I did. So to make a long story short, because some guys, you know, there is a lot of interest around these machines, and so many guys tell me, it should be made this, that, and that. No, my rule is I follow Rich Caruana stuff. So for me, that drawing gives the convincing way of the shape of the Gina. So I follow with him, even if despite, you know, in internet you find a lot of guys know everything about everything. So you have to make your own decision about the item. And what I did, basically, you can see the main conversion that have been applied to the original esci molds. This was the box related, reissued by Italeri, I think in the late 90s, something like that, when they took over the molds from esci, and they repurposed the box with a little different parts and the Frecce Tricolori, very nice decal sheet, but I don't like the acrobatic team plane, so I will not use them. And what you basically can see was that the main modification was a cut here for enlarging, and a cut here on the longitudinal way, and then turning over, because this I didn't show so much in the Facebook process. I made it here in my videos now, so to explain what I did. Increasing the size of the tail fin, create this part, you know, the rear bulge of the canopy, that is a typical shape. So this is quite tricky to obtain, because it should be really, you have always to work with the proportion of the picture in front of you. And lately, enlarge, because many guys, many kids, you know, see my plane this way, Apollo, you didn't enlarge the fuselage. That's wrong, I did. And the modification, you clearly see that here, it's about a couple of millimeters in the front end of the air intake, as well as a bigger cut that lasts down here, that is an enlarging, closing from 1 to 0, about the rear exhaust of the G91. So all the fuselage became longer and wider, little wider. Of course, I cannot enlarge. Some guys try to enlarge in this position to make it big, but it looked like a fish. So if you look the plane in that position, the shape, in my opinion, is not correct. And last but not least, but one of the most tricky part of this conversion remains absolutely this part, you know. This is the critical point of the G91. I mean, many kids around, I call them kids, they're incredibly skilled modelers, and you know that. Many kids around try to make the fuselage conversion, but then they get stuck, because, you know, when you made the fuselage, you see the plane, but to see the plane and to complete the plane, there is a giant step that people usually cannot do. And for me also was absolutely tricky to do, because I was exactly like them, if not worse, of course. I said, okay, there is the plane. No, when you get this fuselage, you are not there by the plane. You are near to the plane, but you are not there, because you miss something that is a critical point of the plane, that is the canopy bulge and the dime to make it in vacuum form. So to make this part, I get mad during the production of the master, because the ordinary way it is just to keep the front part of the windshield, the reinforced and armored windshield that is coming from the standard G91, despite if in the esci box you have to reshape a little better because it is not so well done. You know, it was a mold when I was working for esci, I think it was the late 70s, you know. I was a kid, I was 10, 12 years old, so I started to work with them in the 80s and prepare models for the Norbert Toy Fair. So I well know Mr. Coppola. I was one of his guys, you know. Not really one of the technicians, but it was one of the mercenaries, the modelers, you know. I would just simply build up models like too many companies like Revel, Tamiya, they have their own, Italeri have his own, you know. And I remember that the production of these kits was absolutely well done for the time, but very often the production that they had at the time, the mold was made in China, like everything, you know, and we didn't understand why in the company back to Asia in Cernusco sul Naviglio used to arrive molds that look awesome in Tamiya level, in Hasegawa level, like for example the quality of the Mach-E 326, you know. If you take the Mach-E 326 that soon it will be reissued by Italeri, I guess, even from Asia at the time, you will see that the recessed lines is the same level of Hasegawa, so you don't match it so much. Instead, other boxes, for example, the A7, the Slav, the Corsair 2 was absolutely crap in my opinion. It was completely different stuff, you know, seems really rubbish compared to the same arrival of in the same year, they arrived in the same year, I remember, of the Mach-E 326. So we never understand, later on I understand why it was that way, you know, because basically the Chinese used to take the order down there, and then they had a contractor that made the moldings for this main bigger company that had relation to the West. So what you order from them can be ultra nice and ultra shitty. There was no way between. The point was that the company paid the same to them, so we had no way to understand so much. There was a lack of knowledge, lack of context, a lack of communication between the both parts. So that was the story about this kind of items, and that's why back in time when you take the esci molds, some of them for the period were absolutely stunning, really today at the same level, because the mold guys was the same one that today are working in Hasegawa, Tamiya, AFV, all that great company that make awesome production. And indeed you have other parts that were completely, oh Jesus, what I get now, you know. And I remember some stuff that I took from them was absolutely A10, there was some stuff that was really okay, don't let me talk bad, but you understand what I mean. And coming back to the G91, I remember that the work was quite well done, you know, at the time, and it was absolutely unique, mostly, you know. We are talking about what? We are talking about something that is a miracle that exists in 48, because otherwise, without Mr. Coppola, that now rest in peace guy, and without esci, this stuff will never exist, neither in the monoposto version, the single-seater, you know. So the problem was that the canopy you cannot take from that version. I mean, apart from the front part of the, I open the camera, you can see that quite well. The front part of the windshield was anyway coming from that, and you anyway have to deal, if you are thinking to make a conversion kit about that model, because of course if you start to say, okay, that is not good, that is not, then you make completely a brand new model. Then I don't have the power to produce a complete full detail model in 1/48 scale, you know. I mean, I could, but for my production system it will become a bloodbath, you know, both for me and both for the guy that want to buy this stuff. So my way was to go in the direction of the fuselage conversion, you know, being the wings coming from the G91 quite similar between the single-seater and the double-seater. I think there is a little different in the attachment of the wings to the fuselage. You have to check carefully the drawings and the pictures, and probably some different in the final line, but it's a minor detail, so it's something that everybody can do by his own. And instead, this canopy was the critical point, because the canopy, even more in the T1 to T3 version, had the secondary bulge that was very, very strange in the look, because it looked bubbled like in the way of the single-seater. So many guys start to think, okay, I have the first part of the canopy, I have the last part of the canopy, so these two parts should be, and they are not, the same one coming from the plastic box, and then you miss this front one. So I've heard about guys that bought boxes because they look like coming from maybe a tomcat, so you scrap down some monogram tomcat, some revel tomcat and so on, so you destroy also a tomcat kit. No, in my opinion that is not the correct way. In my opinion the way to make it is to have a drawing and you make your own dime in the size of it and then you build it up. The building of this canopy was absolutely longer than the building of the entire fuselage, because in the entire fuselage you just have to cut, enlarge and follow the drawing. In this stuff you have to create by nothing. I mean, this side that I created was not coming from anything, just the front part was matching to the kit part. And my idea was, and it will be what I provide in the kit, will be to give you all the part that later on I will introduce you. This is part one of the video because I suspect it will become quite long video, you know, but I want to give you something in the meanwhile you are waiting my announcement in Facebook and in internet about the arrival on the market of this model, because right now I have a production problem because simple like that. The guy casting this is taking sun in Thailand, so I am just waiting him, so it's stuff that will end I guess for the end of February, so that's why I'm answering to all the guy asking me what's going on with the production, because he shows some picture that is this part that I get is the first batch, incomplete of course, because the guy was in the mood, I have to leave, I have to leave, I have to leave, wanted to go to sunny Thailand, you know, I'm in Italy right now and the temperature is crap because it's 2 to 3 degrees and foggy, and I neither have this base camp is not in the sunny and the nicest part of Italy. This is an ordinary Milano suburban area, so you guess what the difference will be with the sun of Thailand, and I understand that he's a good guy, so no problem for me about that. Then I'm waiting him because I need more fuselage. The fuselage I have a problem in the casting, so it's quite complicated and tricky to do, but he is making that, because you see, I'm talking of stuff that you have in front of your eyes, so the part is here, so I'm not telling you bullshits about, now we'll come, we'll arrive, no, the stuff is here. And talking about the divisions of the part that I made here, I made something different, you know. Usually when you get conversion like this, you get what? You get part, you get the fuselage that is cut in this way, you know. Everybody that have taken fuselage for conversion for planes, I had back in time for the double-seater A10 and 48, and for everything, you know, you usually get the fuselage splitted in two and casted one and one. And you know, guess what? Every time that I found the fuselage always wrinkled, because when you work with this kind of thickness that is extremely thin, I mean, my thickness in resin is nearly exactly the thickness that you will have in the plastic kit, so you will not have the typical, there is an Italian ugly word that says matazzone, it is something that means really ugly and chubby, you know, to work with. Instead you have exactly the fuselage that you get inside the esci box, so it's very easy and light stuff. Of course I asked the guy to close the rear part of the fuselage to give it stability, you know, to give it something that you will not during the working process to crack. When I was working on the mast, you know, between the cuttings and fixing and cutting and fixing, it was extremely fragile, so I don't want something that is fragile. And mostly, I hope that with the camera you can see that the line, the shape line of the real tail compared to the fuselage is absolutely precise. So I mean the shape and the proportion is respected, and the lines are quite straight, so you don't have to fold there so much. You know, people working with this stuff in resin is quite used to fix part, glue parts, whatever, I know, but if I can, I want to give you the most precise item I can provide, you know. So the division of the model have been made by me in this way, this to allow the guys that think that they have to enlarge, you know, if somebody took the item, then you can do whatever you want with my item, you know. Instead, my idea was just to cut on this line that does not respect the foldering line of the G91, so it's a little lower in the panel lines, and so I never follow panel line in the cutting process. This why, because if you keep them, it's absolutely much more easy to follow the proper point of regluing it and to fix it, and you know where basically you are going with the gluing of the part, you know. So it's absolutely, in my opinion, much more easy. More when you go and place filler over the cutting line, because of course the edge be not sharp, you know, you have to fill it up, this part, this is obvious stuff, but it's much more easy because you are not working in a line that have to be putty, filler and scribed, so you take away the filler, you have to replace the filler. I hate that process, you know, so I prefer to give you this part, you place filler, you close it completely, and then you just follow the nearby paneling line to retake the shape of the panel that you just have closed. And in the kit you also, first of all I forget to mention, this kind of kit, this was a plane that in reality had been used by, of course, the Italians that love him so much, and of course the Germans that was the partner with Dornier producing this plane. I think there was a minor modification in the system, in the data system of the plane, and probably in the gun. I don't remember it probably because this is a master that they made last year right now. And anyway, the plane is identical both from Italy and Germany and Portuguese Air Force. So a lot of Portuguese guys are asking me, mostly is the main quantity of model that already, when they see the plane, they wanted it so much, also because Portugal was the only one that really used that in operative theater. So the only one that really did something of these planes was the Portuguese Air Force. It was not the Italian Air Force, you know. So I have to give something nice also to this guy, and they have some modelers down there. So I guess really that they like my stuff, you know. So the division of the model will be made, as said, with the lower part of the air intake that retakes nearly completely the part coming from the esci molds, as well as inside here you will have a part of the air intake, because you know in the esci kit, of course, there is a mock-up of the air intake, and so something that you can rebuild by yourself, or paint in black, or place something like a panel in front of it to close it. So it's up to you, but there is a part, it is this resin part, taking the last part of the pedals of the cockpit, of the front side of the cockpit, you know, that will be placed inside here, like the upper part of the front air intake that have been enlarged. But the enlargement that I did was not in the upper side of the fuselage, so it was just in the under part. So it is just this part that, if you compare to the kit one, will result 2 mm larger. This was because the G91T had shared the same dimension of the front air intake together with the twin engine G91Y. So it was a little different, you know, that part. I had to study quite carefully. More, you have the double cockpit, you know. This is a double cockpit that I placed in this position, you know, with a lot of detail. They were a little particular because the front side was a little different than the second side. Also here I completely referred to Rich Caruana book, and with the typical details, you know, the cockpit was similar to that. And this is the side that you have to place in position here. You have, of course, to check carefully the picture about how much the rear dashboard will come out from the fuselage line to take the proper proportion, you know. But it is two parts of the cockpit that I divided in two pieces. This to allow you to paint better all the cockpit side and to make all the dry brush and the effort that you want, add cable and wires and whatever. Even if they start from a already quite well detailed part, I just increased a little the raise for the ejection seats, you know. This is ordinary stuff in a model kit. And then this was another of the problem, because the guy made for now 5 fuselage and they gave me 5 seats, you know, and I told him several times it's a twin-seater, man, so I get at least 10 seats, and the seat is absolutely nice. It is the MK4 ejection seat from Martin Baker. I will make a video also about the painting and finishing of that, as well as I did for the F104 and the MK10 for the Tornado 72. So I need more MK4 for the G91, but it is absolutely nicely well done, as well as the other ones that I did. I prefer ejection seats with the seat belts molded on, because I think in a dry brush and in the painting process it becomes much more nicely, much more realistic to have the seat belts like in the real plane. You know, this was a plane from the 60s, so it was not so clean and precise like the modern items. If you see the planes, the cockpit of the F-35 is disappointing because it seems to be like in a surgeon room. So, and I don't like it so much. I prefer this old-fashioned guy, you know, coming from the 60s, where everything was absolutely super stuff, but it was coming from the period. So you understand what I mean. So this is the seats, as well as even in the cockpit I prepared the front side, you know, because being the cockpit a little different, there is a front side of the plane that needs some side details in the inner part. I'm not seeing what the camera is taking. I hope that you can see everything what I'm showing you. Let me check if the position is more or less. I cannot see so much. And here we go. And of course you will find also the main dashboard, the main front instrument panel, you know. I didn't go for photo etched parts in this point. I went in the old-fashioned way to make. I love it so much back in time, the model coming from monogram models, and the monogram was making incredibly stunning cockpit details with a lot of detail that if you paint in the proper way they became simply awesome, you know. And of course, same question like for the seats, you know, the guy made 5 cloches, but we need 10 cloches, you know, quite nicely molded in resin, you know, the double cloche for the double commands of the plane, you know. As well as in the same kit, you will have the little covering from the front dash that will be here. This little triangle is later on I will show you in my page the detailed parts one by one, so you will see what you will find in my resin conversion. But this is anyway the resin front part of the panel that is under the cockpit, under the canopy, sorry, plus final part, I guess, the 3 wheels with the weight effect of the plane. You know, this is a quite tiny detail that I always love in model because they give a lot of realism more. You know, the wheel coming from the G91 have been modified. In my opinion, they are a little too big, so I made them a little smaller, a little chubby. I didn't make the pattern on the wheel because in many pictures the pattern was basically just 3 thin lines, but sometimes they get very, very easy destroyed by the heavy usage of the machines, you know. And I think that anyway the heavy effect bulge on the contact point to the airfield surface can be absolutely cool item to add to your model. And finally, that is another part that I am fixing now. This I'm fixing by my own because I'm still waiting the caster, as I say, to be back from his Bella Vita time. And so I try to do by myself because I need more also for other projects and so on to make my own canopy in vacuum form. I bought a little vacuum forming machine to make something at home for myself, you know. And this was the result to see if the bulge was convincing, you know, and I think is absolutely, you see. It was a kind of plastic that I used in the more than 10 years ago when I was producing part in vacuum form from another company that they asked me, but they gave me the machine, you know, at the time there was not possibility to buy your own machine to make your own stuff. Instead, this little Chinese machine is quite good. Looks serious. I mean, it doesn't look like something that you can be homemade if you don't have the proper skill, you know. I need something very, very easy and little and reliable to work with, and the result is pretty decent, you know. Still not in a professional way because there is still some crispiness, you know, and the part you have to study, but my idea will be anyway in the model, being this the most critical part, and I know that many guys have problems in working with this. Me at first, how many times do you cut and you cut in the wrong way, you say, oh fuck, and now what should we do? And then you have to stop your model for that. So my idea will be, for all the guys taking my conversion, to add, if I can, a dime of the transparent part. So I mean, if you mess it up, this part, okay, it is not everything is lost, but I can try to make it again by my own, because anyway you have the dime that is making this part by yourself. So at least you don't have to trash or write me or beg me, or if you live in the other side of the world, ask to somebody that is living in Sweden to send a spare part in 3-4 months. So maybe you can fix it by your own. So that is my idea. I don't think in the beginning I say so, but because I wanted, you know, to make modelers out there quite happy, you know, but I don't think that I will sell just this part. I mean, just the dime and the canopy separately now. I mean, I can produce by my own a spare canopy. Somebody's really panicking and made a mess. You say, if you take my model and you say, Paolo, I made a mess, I destroyed the fuselage, I destroyed this, I destroyed that, and I don't have any longer the model, but this canopy I can maybe provide like a spare part. So I try to help the guys that take my items, no? So that's it, you know. For now I spent the last few days producing some parts in the vacuum form to try to have the complete model mostly, and I need absolutely one to finish the master, because the master I will finish like a demo kit, usually for demo production, to be more spotted on what I provide around, you know. I don't say to sell, because this is not a real selling, you know. I have so many guys asking me, hey Paolo, do you sell this stuff? And they say, no, I don't have the numbers, no, I don't have so much in quantity. So it's really just amateur stuff. I'm not a producer, I'm nothing, you know. I'm just producing some stuff that basically I like, and I hope people out there like them too. So I'm making some parts for myself, and sometimes, like I did for the NSX, like I did for the Porsche, I build it up, the copy, the resin copy, because I want to be in the position of the modeler taking my parts and saying, okay, get from Paolo this stuff, so how does it work? And I always think that if I can build it up in a decent way, you know, I think everybody out there can do the same, and probably much better than me. I see models about cars, you know, about the stuff, about trucks, the same, you know, build my modelers in an incredibly nice way. So that's it. This is the first part of the video. If you have questions, write it under in the comments under this video, and I'm preparing the second part when all the parts will be ready. I want to keep you updated about this idea about this project, because, you know, usually I don't plan to do so many planes. I think military planes is something that there is already nearly everything out there. But this subject, this G91, as well as the trainer of the F104, was one of the most interesting planes that have been used by the Italian Air Force, and also for the period they belong. They are absolutely nice subject that can be interesting to add in a collection, you know. And the trainers are always fascinating, because when you study them, you see the kind of plane that is something that is really studied to learn and to train up pilots that have to fly alone in this machine. So it's incredibly stories, you know, around that, and it's absolutely fascinating. That's why I like so much the trainers, you know. And that's it, guys. I hope that you liked the videos, and as I said, I think right now we are in the middle of February 2020, and I think we will be ready to sell the first one for the end of the month. But, you know, as said, if you want to be in my waiting list about this model, you know, I say they're producing, for example, 10 models, and they have something like 100 requests now. So in the first batch, I have to, of course, provide the stuff to the first guy that write me, since they see that I was doing something like that. But keep the faith, and be patient, and I will try to make everybody out there happy with the production of this, and I hope that you also like it. So I'm waiting for your comments. I will change a little the schedule in my YouTube videos, and probably this video will be available a little before than the others, just to introduce what's going on with the G91T and the status of the production. So thanks for watching, guys, and see you in the next one. See you!